Thanks, Chair. Hi guys, how are you going? Look, my question, I guess, is when you said your role is basically in regards to misleading conduct. In regards to misleading conduct, misleading regarding communications. If you sign a contract with the telco for say 2 years, and you're assuming you're going to get X level of services, and then 3G is pulled, is that considered misleading communication, misleading deceptive behaviour?
You would need to look at the full contract. I think, Senator, is the short answer, and there are unfair contract term provisions and things like that as well, generally in telco contracts and others. But yeah, it would depend on all the facts, but it would raise concerns. And one of the things we've spoken about with particularly the retail groups in terms of selling 3G handsets and things now is that sometimes silence can be misleading, and so selling a 3G only handset and not mentioning that, by the way, that's closing in a couple of months, there could be concerns there.
Yeah, because I'd imagine you get a fair bit of that in this day and age with upgrades, not just with telecommunications, but software, Microsoft and things like that, whereby they're constantly upgrading, and then before you know it, what you've sort of acquired, 3 or 4 years ago is now out of date, and you've got to buy the upgrade, or otherwise, everything goes.
Yes, and there's questions around what's a reasonable period of time before that needs to happen and things as well, all of which gets considered when we're looking at the case.
Yeah, because it's slightly, I should disclose conflict of interest here, personal issue, but I use Telstra and I have an email app on my phone, and for some particular reason now I can't send out emails from this particular app, and I went to see Telstra and they go, we no longer support that anymore, and they say you've got to use either your Gmail or Google online app. And I was really annoyed by that, because it's another example here of how they just withdraw services despite the fact you're paying them. And so do you have any authority to clamp down on that? Or can you just report it back to the government?
I think, again, that would come. We would look at it from an ACL perspective, but I don't think we've got any regulatory tools that we could use in that particular situation.
Do you have any regulatory tools in any situation, or all you can do is raise it to a higher authority? Yeah,
we do have regulatory tools, but they relate to our economic regulation function.
What is that? Sorry to interrupt you there. What does that mean?
That means that we actually regulate a number of wholesale telecommunication services that might have, monopoly characteristics that are then available for other companies to purchase and sell on to consumers. So things like we regulate the National Broadband Network, for example, a number of fixed line services.
What about retail? Because you
No.
don't regulate retail at all?
Wholesale only, yeah.
So who regulates retail?
In a specific... I think there are... I think I heard the ACMA colleague before say it was a complex regulatory situation, and it is a complex regulatory situation. It would depend very much on the service. So, for example, there's few retail regulations around mobile services, for example.
There's few?
Yeah, there. It's in terms of not being covered. We look after the Australian consumer law. There may be other regulations that apply in terms of standards and things like that.
Wouldn't the Australian consumer law cover retail?
Yes. But only that kind of the practices, selling practices, and things like that.
Okay, yeah, because it does beg the question, because we've got the Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman on after lunch. You're here now, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, and then we just had before you the Australian Communications and Media Authority. So there's sort of like 3 government organisations or government-related organisations. So it does kind of beg the question, who's in charge of what, doesn't it, to a degree?
Yeah. So our legislation is economy-wide, and so it applies to telecommunications providers, but it's not necessarily specific around performance or things like that by telecommunications providers. Does that
Yeah, it
Makes
does,
sense,
because you're Competition and Consumer Commission rather than Telecommunications. But, yeah, no, fair enough, yeah. We've got a telecommunications industry ombudsman on next, so hopefully they will cover what you don't. Yeah, cheers, thank you.
I'm sure someone...
Authorised G. Rennick People First Chermside.